What long-billed bird is bright iridescent purple and black with yellow legs and shiny black toenails? For the answer, stay tuned to Twits and Pishers. The oropendolas are noisy this morning. Well, hello, fellow bird watchers, and welcome to the neotropical rainforest in Trinidad. I'm at the Asa Wright Nature Centre, which is probably the most comfortable, most accessible nature lodge in all of the American tropics. And I can hardly wait. There are hundreds of species of birds here that I've never seen before. Beautiful birds, weird birds, birds unlike any that we find back home. And I'm going to be birding today with Nancy Barron, a friend from Canada, who was here leading an eco tour, and I talked her into staying a few extra days to fill me in on all of this abundant speciosavian biodiversity that I'm not quite familiar with yet. I'm catching on though. Black-faced ant thrush. Maybe we'll get lucky and see it. The Asa Wright Nature Centre is situated in Trinidad's northern range of mountains, which are really just an eastward extension of the South American Andes. The English-speaking island of Trinidad is culturally and politically part of the Caribbean, but since it lies just 11 kilometers off Venezuela, it is biologically more like part of South America. So this is an absolutely superb spot. You can sit here, have your homegrown coffee, and watch 9 species of hummingbirds. Now we've got what, about 4 in front of us right now. But what a spectacle!
I know.
I just love this black-throated mango up on the top of the powder puff bush here.
Yeah, it's a huge honkin' hummer, isn't it? It's the biggest one.
Honkin' huger. Yes.
And then you have the teeny tiny tufted coquette that's not much bigger than my baby finger. I mean, well, it's just minuscule.
That one, that's the bird I wanted to see when we came here. It's just so weird. It's a little tiny hummer with the sides of the gorget extended out. It's big red crest. It looks like a salmon fly.
I know. You wonder how it can fly with all those little bits. You think it'd be constantly getting trapped in things.
Well, it's got to be like every other bird that it's, 50% feathers. How big can the body be on that thing?
I don't know.
Unbelievable.
This is pretty well hummingbird heaven.
It is. The white-necked Jacobin. If I wasn't so excited about the tufted coquette, the white-necked Jacobin would be my new favorite hummingbird.
I know. It's a stylish bird with that beautiful white collar and the beautiful white breast. It's almost like the business executive, woman in her fine falutin clothes.
Iridescent blue suit.
Iridescent blue suit.
I'm sure you got one of those somewhere.
No, have to have one though.
Absolutely. And then there's the white-chested emerald, and it's not a bad-looking hummingbird, but it's not quite as dramatic. I mean, just the white front and the iridescent green.
Yeah, it's a pretty bird, but it's different than the rest of them because the rest of them are so overall iridescent, the entire body.
A lot of this green iridescent, I guess, is good camouflage in the vegetation, which is it's got to be good for the birds. And what else have we got here in plain view? We've seen a few copper rumps, but
yeah, the copper rump is really a nice bird too. It can look completely black though, unless you get the light on it. Then all of a sudden you just, like somebody turns the lights on in your binoculars, it just bangs your eyes. But the thing to look for on it is got those neat little white thighs.
Yes, yeah, they are nice. They're not quite as. Have you ever been further south in South America and seen the puff-legged hummingbirds?
I've never seen them.
Huge, puffy white legs. Oh, very, very, very.
This is more subtle.
It is. Very subtle.
But then we should also be looking for some of the duller birds. There's actually a whole group of hummingbirds that live here called the hermits. And they're hermits because they are living in the forest in the dark understory, and they're not iridescent at all. They're very dull by comparison.
With the decurved bills.
Big decurved bill, and they usually have a white eye stripe. And you see them poking around in the flowers, doing a trap line as you're walking through the woods, going from red flower to red flower.
And what about, I mean, they're not the only nectar-feeding birds here, too. Let's have a look at these honeycreepers.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if I wasn't so excited about the hummingbirds, I would be absolutely blown over by these honeycreepers, and I am. I mean, this purple honeycreeper.
The
Yellow legs, purple body.
The female looks
What
like
the
a
heck?
totally different bird. She's green, and she has a little blue mustache, but she has that same decurved bill for sipping nectar from shorter blossoms, and those long legs.
Very impressive. And the green honeycreeper.
Now that's a good-looking bird.
I don't think you can get any greener than the green honeycreeper. I keep getting my hummingbirds mixed up. The green.
A whole lot of H is going on.
Oh, hey, yeah. The green honeycreeper. Absolutely unbelievable. And really strong sexual dimorphism, males and females.
Oh, yeah.
Very different in these birds.
Yeah, that iridescence on the male green honeycreeper with the black cap, it's just for contrast, and then the yellow bill coming out of that neat differentiation. It's just beautiful. Too much.
Too much. This little hummingbird is the female tufted coquette. She lacks the crest and spangled gorget of the male, but is still easily recognizable by the white line across the back of her rump. I suspect that these are also the smallest full-grown birds I've ever seen. Like other hummingbirds, they are aggressive, and we watched as these two performed a sort of slow-motion aerial sparring match, demonstrating an absolutely amazing degree of control over their flight. It was probably a dispute over feeding territory, and I got the feeling that the lower bird had the advantage and that a fleeting lapse of concentration could result in an instant attack from the other bird. But lest you get the impression that hummingbirds and honeycreepers are the only spectacular birds in Trinidad, here's another group altogether. What do you say we focus on these tanagers for a minute? This is such a neat group in the tropics. I mean, back home we're used to tanagers being red, yellow, orange birds, and there being relatively few species. And here they are every color, and there are lots and lots of species.
It's a huge family. And what's really interesting to me about them is that you can tell a lot about where each particular species of tanager lives by how flamboyantly colored it is. Like the iridescent ones, like the bay-headed tanager with that electric green, beautiful chestnut head, is obviously a canopy bird because it has that iridescent quality, whereas some of the more subtle-looking tanagers, like the one they call blue jean here, perfect name for faded blue jeans, the blue-gray tanager, is much more of a garden-type variety that's out in the open sun and more around homes, and it's not a canopy-type feeding tanager. So I think I always like it when you can figure out a bird's habitat by being able to just look at it and speculate a little.
What about these white-lined tanagers? I mean, those are really bizarre because the male is so different from the female, and the male looks like some kind of a blackbird.
But it has that nervous flicking habit. It's always showing its little white wing patches, and it's like it's got a tick. It's, kind of trying to shrug something off its shoulders. But like you say, the female looks like a totally different bird. She's that nice rufous color, and more than once I've thought that she was a thrush.
Very much that.
She looks a little bit like a cocoa thrush, but she's got that longer tail and a slimmer body, and that nice, soft, fruit-eating bill that all the tanagers have.
Well, speaking of the bill, I think that my favorite so far has to be this silver-beaked tanager.
That is...
What a great-looking bird.
It looks like it's in its party wear, doesn't it? Doesn't it look like red velvet on the male? It's just beautiful.
And it's not just a matter of that lower mandible being bright silver white, it's also huge. I mean, it's a very differently structured bill.
Yeah. But it still has that broader at the base, and it's a real generalist, more shaped bill for fruit eating as opposed to the long, narrow ones for poking into things.
And what about these palm tanagers? Now, how do they fit in your theory of tanager coloration?
Well, they're the most subtle of them all, aren't they? And I kind of like them for that reason, because you get your eyeballs knocked out by all these iridescent birds, and along comes the palm tanager with this soft kind of neutral colors with just the dark base of the wings, and I like that bird.
Easy on the retina.
Easy on the retina, and obviously not not a bird of the canopy, more of the edges and the understory of the forest. But still, fruit eater.
Lovely dark eyes. Has a very gentle look to it, doesn't it?
It's beautiful. Just a little bit of a wash of yellowy olive on the head.
No, I like them. Tanagers. Great family.
Big family.
Big family. The
And lots.
Thropidae.
Yes.
Isn't that a terrible word? Wouldn't you rather call them tanagers rather than thropids? Oh, another thropid.
And whenever I see them at home from now on, I'll think about all the brethren here at Asa Wright.
Brethren of the Thropidae. Oh, there goes some orange-winged parrots, too. One of the highlights of our stay at Asa Wright was a guided tour of the oilbird cave. Only twice a week are birders allowed to see the oilbirds, and then only on guided walks. The trail leads down to the valley of a small rainforest stream, where the first thing we noticed was the huge population of frogs. These are Colostethus, a poison arrow frog that, unlike its relatives, has neither poisonous skin nor the bright warning colors to go with it. The oilbirds were not far away, and our guide illuminated them with his flashlight as they roosted in what was clearly a narrow canyon and not a cave at all. Our sensitive video camera captured the look of these strange nocturnal birds that eat fruit by night and rest here in daylight. Notice their highly reflective eyes and hooked bills. Their weird cries filled the canyon along with the clicks they use for echolocation, the way bats do. Beneath them, piles of regurgitated seeds were building up, and some of them were even beginning to sprout, sure to soon die in the dark canyon. Oilbirds have been classified with the nightjars by ornithologists, although they also show features in common with owls. After our brief look, we left them in peace, where this rare roosting spot could continue on as part of the rainforest as it had for millennia before us. The Asa Wright Nature Centre is great, and so is the well-marked trail system, especially for those interested in birds. Well, hey, I wonder where the white-bearded mannequin lek is.
Now, this is my kind of burden, John, because you can almost always guarantee that we're going to see these guys at least.
And there they are. Yeah. Now, what an interesting little bird. That's a family we just don't see back home at all.
Yeah, and it's thanks to fruit that we can count on them being here just about all day, every day.
So these are exclusively fruit-eating birds?
Yeah, and they feed on the forest fruits, these little mellostomes. They're like a little dark elderberry, and there's all sorts of them around here. So what they do is they just have all day to do their singing and dancing to attract the females, and they just go off when they're hungry for a little feed for 5 minutes. They come right back here and resume where they left off.
Excellent. You know, the thing, I was reading that they can live as long as like 12, 15 years. So these male birds have been at this dancing thing for that long, some of them?
It's amazing. And this particular lek where we are right now has been here for decades. They've known about this since the 50s. And this just goes on generation after generation, all day, every day. There's little mannequins here, but they're highly territorial. And each of these males, even though it may look random, each of them has a special little piece of this dance floor that they call their court.
And they clear off the leaves off them.
They're excellent housekeepers. If you put a little piece of stuff on their floor, they immediately go in there and they clean it off because they have to be always at their best just in case there's a female cruising and there's the potential for love and that brief interlude.
After the snapping.
After the snapping, yeah. Female comes in. You can always tell because that snapping starts to build up to a crescendo and they start popping back and forth between those little poles. And she's just watching, peering through the grass, looking to see which one is the most energetic, because of course he's going to make the best father. And then what she does is she goes and she positions herself at the bottom of the pole. And then he knows that's his chance. And he does the fireman thing. He slides down the pole, 1 foot on her back, 1 foot on the branch, and the deed is done. And she goes off, raises the family, and he just keeps on dancing, looking for his next opportunity.
Isn't that just bizarre?
I know, that's quite a strategy.
That's really neat. And they make the sound not with their voice, but with their little wings.
Yeah, they've got these little stiff little feathers on their wings, and that's what makes it... Sometimes if you snap your fingers, they'll actually check you out just to see if you're part of the competition.
Oh, I like these birds. And you know, they're long-lived birds, and they look like little old men, too, with their little weird chins up there.
Yeah, that's another one. You can tell they're excited because they stick out that little beard, and they get that big sort of like pompous look, and they're just about perfectly round. It's hard to imagine the female being so drab and green is the subject of all this energetic attention. But she has to raise her young entirely on her own. So it's important that once she's left and goes off, she can just blend in with a leaf and go completely unnoticed because she has to do the entire raising of her family on her own. And it's a pretty risky business. Apparently, mannequins have very low survivorship in the first year, but if they can make it to adultship, they've got about a 90% chance of living maybe 14, 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you just have to make it through that critical period.
Yeah.
Well. Now, do you know if they're named mannequins because they are like store mannequins or because they're just manic?
Well, I think I'd vote for the manic.
They are manic.
Yeah.
When they get going, they're really, really manic.
Manicus, manica.
White-bearded mannequin. One of my new favorite birds. Further down the trail, Nancy and I continued to search for elusive rainforest birds while the loudest of them all called continuously above us.
It'd be nice if we could actually get a look at this bird that we've been hearing ever since we arrived here. I mean, it's the sound of the rainforest here in the Arima Valley. Look, do you see?
You got it?
Right in the V, through those two vines below the trunk. Do you see the shape?
In the light area there.
Look at it, it's got that nice coffee-colored beard.
Ooh.
You see the wattles?
I do.
That's why they call it the bearded bellbird.
And look at it, belt mouth those notes. That's excellent. I've heard that these bellbirds in general have one of the loudest calls of any bird.
No
and
kidding.
I believe it. It just cuts right through the vegetation.
Yeah, and you can almost feel it in your chest. There's that reverberating sound. Oh, that's amazing.
I never expected to see it this well.
No, it'd be really cool if a female came in. You know, the females get attracted in by those balks, and they get closer and they get closer. When the male sees that the female's there, he stops balking for a minute. You know what he does?
No idea.
He shows her his thigh.
No way.
Yeah, no kidding. He's got this colored spot in his thigh, and he like hefts up the feathers, and he shows off the spot, and she's staring fixedly at him, and he keeps balking. And if she doesn't back off, well, you know what happens then.
I can only imagine.
Well, I'll leave it to your imagination, John.
Okay, well, now that's set up our expectations for this bird pretty high. Oh, and instead he regurgitates fruit.
Oh, there he goes. There he goes. Little. Well, he's a fruit eater.
A moment with the bearded bellbird.
Yes.
I enjoyed that. Well, when you're birding here in Trinidad, the standard guide is A Guide to the Birds of Trinidad and Tobago by Richard French. It's a Cornell University Press book, and it's very, very useful. In fact, it's indispensable if you're birding here for any length of time and if you want to know exactly what you're looking at. You might also want to bring your North American field guide because there are some North American migrants that overwinter here. And you might also want to pick up a book about the birds of Venezuela because, of course, Trinidad is so close to Venezuela, you get a lot of overlap there too. But there you go, the standard guide. Get yourself a copy. Oropendola. Isn't that a wonderful word?
Do you think that's what...
Oropendola.
anything to do with pendulous, as in,
Pendulosity?
yeah, as in pendulous nests?
I think that's a very excellent etymological suggestion. These nests are absolutely right off the scale. I mean, the birds are related to orioles, and like the orioles, they weave a nest. But this nest, look at it. It looks like a basketball in the end of a really long, itchy sock.
Now, the other thing that I like about oropendola society is that it's the old females that are preferred by the males, and those would be the ones that would have the nests that are really closely located together. The male takes on the whole group of females, and the females are like a unit. They all leave at the same time from the nest to go to feed, come back at the same time, and so the male follows around his group of females, kind of like a male lion follows his pride of females.
What about those male displays?
Oh, they're ridiculous, aren't they? It's hard to believe that that's what actually gets the females. Look at that male, just making a fool of himself for love.
That's just a wild display. That's really, really interesting. To hang upside down like that and flap your wings and make a noise like some kind of mechanical failure. Excellent. Very good. If I was a female oropendola, which I am definitely not, I would be impressed.
I guess whatever turns you on.
Whatever. Oropendolas. You know, I think it's really important, even in an exotic place like this, not to ignore the common birds. And as far as I can tell, I haven't spent that much time in the American tropics, but the common bird, the ubiquitous bird, is the bananaquit, isn't it?
Yeah, no kidding. I always feel very secure when I lift my binoculars and say with great authority, there's a bananaquit, because inevitably there is. You know what else I like about them is the sound they make. They remind me of a gym teacher, an over-enthusiastic gym teacher just blowing incessantly on her little whistle, you know, going nuts and trying to get everybody together. Nobody's paying attention to her. She just keeps trying harder.
I think that, well, they're very hyper birds. I mean, they're feeding on nothing but sugar.
Yeah. If you ate that much sugar, you'd be hyper too.
Well, yeah, oh, absolutely. I'm hyper enough as it is. But they love these hummingbird feeders, and they're taking nectar from some of these flowers around the yard here too.
Yeah, and they also will even go into people's houses. They've been known to rob jam pots, and you see them dipping their little beaks into the sugar bowls. Mm-hmm. In fact, the locals call them sugar bird.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because of their sweet tooth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good name.
Fitting.
Well, I guess they're technically a sort of honeycreeper as well, aren't they? Although I've seen some books put them in their own family, the bananaquitidae. I can't remember what their name is. But they look like a honeycreeper. They got a little bit of a D curve on the bill and the long legs and the short tail.
And they're also known to tear open flowers if they can't get at them the legitimate way, which is through the opening of the flower. They'll just rip a hole open in the base and they'll sip the nectar that way. So they also call them flower piercers.
Oh yeah, right on. Well, there's a whole group of birds called flower piercers too. Although I don't think there are any in Trinidad, are there?
Well, except for the bananaquit, which is its own group onto itself.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say, Nancy. There's no such thing as an inadequate bananaquit. There's no such thing at all. Well, won't you have a look at this? The best way to see new birds is definitely to travel to someplace you've never been before. The further away, the better. Here at the Asa Wright Nature Centre, we saw 68 new birds, representing 93% of the species we saw on this trip. And our new grand total has not only surpassed 400, but reached all the way up to 447. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we've got right now for Trinidad birds, and I haven't even showed you the mott-mott yet. So do join us next time. We'll finish up a few things around the Asa Wright Nature Centre, and then we'll venture further afield to the Coroni Swamp and up the road to Pishers. Should be good. Until then, happy birding to you. We'll see you again later. Still haven't seen that sneaky little thing. Kind of reminiscent, though.